In the parsha this week that we just heard, we heard about the Chagim, the festivals. There was mention of Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. Shavuot, which will soon be upon us in a few weeks. We're also in the midst of Sfirat HaOmer, the 7 weeks that we count between Pesach and Shavuot. And the confluence of both the parsha and the time of year made me reflect on the way holiness, Kedusha, is structured in Judaism. And I wanted to spend some time noticing patterns with you this morning, which I love doing, and I think is actually important to understand how Judaism functions. The Chagim, or pilgrimage holidays, are a set of 3. 3 times a year, our ancestors made pilgrimage to Jerusalem. 3 is a holy number in Judaism. It's signaled in the 3 times we say Kedusha in davening this morning. We did 2. You can look up for the third one, where we echo what Isaiah the prophet overhears the angels saying. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Right? Holy, holy, holy. 3 times. We say 3 times. Who knows other special 3s in Judaism? Anything that follows that pattern of noticing a 3? Shlosha miyodea. Right, there's Shlosha avot. Right, there's the 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Sort of connected to them, I think we have 3 prayers each day. We have the 3 daily services that the rabbis say are instituted by each of the ancestors, Shacharit, Mincha, and Mariv. And Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi has a beautiful understanding linking these 3 Chagim, these 3 pilgrimage festivals, to the daily prayers. He explains, one who has compassion for him or herself will set aside a few minutes during weekday mornings to experience the holiness of Passover. Again, one should do the same in the afternoon, as our rabbis of blessed memory taught. A person should be very careful, luminously clear about saying Mincha, the afternoon prayer, which contains echoes of Shavuot, which has the sense of being a bit more strict. The evening prayer contains the light of the Sukkah. Shelter us in the shade of your wings, and ufros aleinu sukkat shalomecha. Spread the Sukkah of peace over us. So did you catch that understanding? Reb Zalman is saying that actually the 3 prayers that we have each day are connected to the 3 pilgrimage holidays, that we go on a similar journey of pilgrimage 3 times every day with the Sidur. And we also have 7, right? I mentioned that we're counting the Omer. We count 7 weeks. What are other significant 7s in Judaism? I hear Sheva Brachas, right? We have the 7 blessings we say during a wedding. The 7th day of the week, Shabbat. Very nice. 7 days of creation, right? And those are beautifully linked together. Some say that everyone says that we celebrate Shabbat because God rested after 7 days of creation. And just to point out, because I like it, I'm sorry I forget your name at the back, with the rainbow talit, that also has 7 stripes that are connected to the 7 days of creation. Right, and I also like that we have the 7 years of Shemitah. Right, when we notice the cycle of 7 years, the 7th is holy and special. And then we have 7 cycles of 7 for the Jubilee, the Yovel year. And in addition to these 7 weeks that we're counting, also in the Torah, the first month is Nisan, and 7 months after is Tishrei. So there's also a cycle of 7 months, right? And it's kind of this spiral, right? 7 days are special, 7 weeks are special, 7 months, 7 years, 7 cycles of 7, right? This spiraling sort of structure is a pattern that's called a fractal. And a fractal is a pattern that repeats in multiple scales. They're never-ending patterns that are infinitely complex, that are created by repeating a simple process over and over again in an ongoing feedback loop. Right? And I brought in for show and tell, for fractals, now wilting fern fronds. And ferns are a great example of seeing a fractal in nature. They're all over nature, in addition to encoded in Judaism. And you can't see it so much because it's a wilting, but the frond itself has this shape, and each little frond leaf contains that same shape on a smaller scale. And this is an ostrich fern, so it doesn't repeat beyond it so much. But other ferns, in each little fern leaflet, the same pattern repeats. And I feel like it's very beautiful, very cool. Right, you also might notice it in the branchings of a tree. There's the larger branches, the same structure in the smaller branches, and then in the veins of the leaf even. Right? And for me, it's very beautiful that Judaism has a similar sense of scale for the structure of 7 in years, in weeks, in days. So fractals are beautiful and interesting, but how can they help us engage in Judaism and our life? And I want to suggest 2 ideas. That they can help us understand doing a mitzvah, a holy action, and also can help us understand how to have a machloket, a holy argument or disagreement, a machloket l'shem shamayim. Adrienne Marie Brown, the author of the book Emergent Strategies, says about fractals that how we are at the small scale is how we are at the large scale. The patterns of the universe repeat at scale. There's a structural echo that suggests 2 things. 1, that there are shapes and patterns fundamental to our universe. And 2, that what we practice at a small scale can reverberate to the larger scale. Marie Brown points out that what we practice at the small scale sets patterns for the whole system. She's talking about the world in general, but this is exactly how mitzvahs work. We can do some small change, right? We can show up to shul today, right? And then that can ripple forward. We could be here, with a group of people. Maybe we could share some insight with somebody at Kiddush. Maybe that could change how somebody lives their life. We can give a little bit of tzedakah to do another small mitzvah, shift somebody's outlook from pessimism to optimism, and things ripple out at scale. Noticing these forms can also help us in what I think is a pressing issue in our lives and communities of polarization, right? Of pushing away from each other. And I want to briefly digress to talk about the structures of holiness in space. In Judaism, the holiest space is the Holy of Holies, Kodesh HaKodshim, which is in the temple, in the middle of the temple in Jerusalem, right? And there's the Kodesh, the holy area, there's the Chatzer, there's the inner courtyard, and then the outer courtyard. There's Jerusalem itself, there's the land of Israel, right? It's the structure of concentric circles with holiness at the center, right? Synagogues are also traditionally structured like this, right? And in many traditional synagogues, the bima is in the middle of the synagogue. Right here we have what feels like a little bit of a compromise, right? The bima is jutting out, and we have these seats on the sides are very special. So this is an advertisement to sit here in a future Shabbat. You don't have to sit at the back, right? So that there's a sense of concentric circles, of being surrounded by holiness. This is also what's going to happen at Mount Sinai as we think about Shavuot, where we remember receiving the Torah on Sinai, right? That only Moses can go on the mountain, but then the elders and Joshua can go in a little bit closer. The people need to stand merachok, a little bit at a distance. There's, again, circles of holiness. And it's good to be close to the center of holiness, but we can't be there all the time. We're always enveloped in other circles. And I want to relate this to the communities that we're part of and the identities that we have. If we can see that we're part of a shared circle, maybe we can hear each other better. Right? I like sour cream. You like applesauce. But we both love latkes. Maybe we can hear each other out if we can see that shared circle that we're part of. Right? And this is a little bit, it's not exactly the concentric circles. It's like the model of a cell. Right? That there's different organelles inside the cell, but all working for the benefit of the overall cell. Right? We may be conservatives or liberals, but we're all Canadians. Right? This is the model, I think, of machloket l'shem shamayim, constructive conflict. And the rabbinic model of this, which I think we can learn a little bit more as we're nearing the end, is modeled by Hillel and Shammai, two Talmudic sages and their students who always disagreed. Let me read from the Talmud. In Eruvin 13b, Rabbi Abba said that Shmuel said, for 3 years, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel disagreed. These said, the halacha is in accordance with our opinion. These said, the halacha, Jewish law, is in accordance with our opinion. Ultimately, a divine voice emerged and proclaimed, Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. These and these are the words of the living God. Right? That you can disagree with somebody about everything, both rights. However, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Beit Hillel. Why is this? If they're both the words of the living God, why does Beit Hillel get pushed forward? The Gemara asks and answered, since both these and those are the words of the living God, why were Beit Hillel privileged to have the halacha established in accordance with their opinion? The reason is that they were agreeable and forbearing. Right? When they were disagreeing, they weren't stern and standoffish. They were approachable. The tone and texture of having an argument is very important. And Beit Hillel would teach both their statements and the statements of Beit Shammai. Moreover, they prioritized the statements of Beit Shammai to their own statements in deference to Beit Shammai. Right, so they also really heard the other position and gave it airing. They gave it deference. They knew how to share and relate to the other position. Both Beit Hillel, the house of Hillel, and Beit Shammai, the house of Shammai, made space for each other's disagreements, even though they thought the other group was wrong. They saw themselves in the same circle, even if there were different spots on it. In the same circle of rabbis, teachers, leaders of the Jewish people. Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai respected each other. Their children married each other. They saw that they were all part of the same community, part of the same shared structure of holiness. As we notice patterns in our lives, in our sacred Jewish texts and sacred practices, can we see that every part of the pattern is needed? The differences we experience are holy too, especially if we can see the larger circle that contains us, that we share. And if you have more thoughts about this, I'd love to chat more over Kiddush, because maybe you might say, well, what if somebody has an opinion that's so far out? I'd love to chat about that too. May we see the power of patterns that Judaism points us to notice. May we see the power of our small actions that can ripple out into the patterns of the system of our larger world. Can we see that our shared circles can be containers for disagreement, that they can be holy, and we can stay in deep, may we be able to stay in deep and holy relation with each other. Shabbat Shalom.